compared to his peers, he had never achieved anything at the right time. Never. His name was Arjun. No last name. No family history. Nothing to trace him back to. He was found in a torn blanket, abandoned at the entrance of Chhatrapati Shivaji train station. A crying infant, swallowed by the noise of honking cars and rushing passengers. By 5, Arjun was alone. He begged for food at chai stalls. He fought other street boys for scraps. He slept under flyovers, wrapped in newspapers, his stomach gnawing with hunger. But unlike the others, Arjun had a strange habit. He stared at machines. He stared at the buzzing ceiling fan in the tea shop. Traced wires dangling from broken lights. He picked up old radios, fascinated by their insides. Where others saw junk, Arjun saw a puzzle. Where others heard noise, Arjun heard possibility. But fascination didn't feed him. And in Mumbai, street children weren't just ignored. They were spat on, pushed away, called gutter rats. Arjun carried those names like invisible scars. One afternoon he found a broken transistor radio in the trash. He sat on the sidewalk, fiddling with its wires, eyes wide with curiosity. That's when the other boys saw him. They laughed. Look at him, playing with garbage. One of them snatched it away and smashed it on the ground. The sound of it breaking pierced Arjun's chest. Not because it was just a radio, but because in that cracked box he had seen a glimpse of something more, a future he couldn't yet explain. That night, under a flickering streetlight, he whispered to himself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm nothing." And for a moment he believed it. But then something small, almost invisible, shifted. The radio, broken and cracked, sputtered with a faint sound. A voice, static-filled, broke through. It was as if the machine itself whispered back to him, "You are not nothing." And in that moment Arjun decided, if the world would not believe in him, he would believe in himself. But here's the thing. Arjun wasn't a genius who got everything right on the first try. In fact, he failed more times than he could count. Compared to others, he was always behind. When boys his age were in school, he was still trying to teach himself alphabets from discarded textbooks. When others moved from one grade to the next, he was stuck, repeating the same lessons in his mind, struggling to understand. He would try really hard, and then fail. He would debrief himself. Why did I miss it? Why couldn't I solve it? Sometimes the reasons made sense. Other times they didn't. And it hurt every time. But here's what made Arjun different. He did not stop. He realized something that most never see. He was resilient. No matter how many times he failed, he showed up again. No matter how many times the door slammed, he kept knocking. No matter how many no's he collected, he turned each one into fuel. It wasn't brilliance that kept him alive. It wasn't privilege. It wasn't magic. It was resilience. That became his superpower. And that resilience would one day become his leverage. At 12, Arjun had built his first working radio from scraps. By 15, he was repairing old fans and bulbs for shopkeepers, sometimes earning a meal in return. But still, life was slow. He watched his peers move forward, getting into colleges, working jobs, climbing ladders. And he was still behind, fixing things, surviving one day at a time. Then one night, everything changed. A massive blackout swept through the city. The hospital near his street was plunged into darkness. Machines stopped. Patients were in danger. Arjun, barefoot and trembling, rushed to the gates. The guards tried to chase him off. "You don't belong here." But he pointed at the backup generator. He had studied it for weeks, sneaking glances through the fence. "I can fix it," he said. The doctors hesitated. The patients gasped for air. The silence was terrifying. Finally they let him in. With nothing but wires, instinct, and sheer will, Arjun worked. Minutes later, the generator roared back to life. Right on the spot he collapsed and became unconscious. Lights flickered. Machines beeped. Breath returned. The boy, mocked as garbage, had just saved lives. In the process he started to fight for his own. Arjun had never achieved anything on time. Never. He failed in school. He failed in jobs that he failed at almost everything he touched. Life for him was always a step behind. Always dragging. Always slow. On this day he was fast enough to save lives by fixing the generator, but still the slowness caught up with him in the cruelest way. On the hospital bed, a doctor looked him in the eyes and said, "You have 3 months to live." He had been diagnosed of a terminal illness. Clock is ticking really fast. An orphan who grew up in the narrow streets of Mumbai. No parents. No home. No privilege. Just hunger, dust, and survival. Now, when he was just beginning to stand, he was being told he must fall forever. One night, Arjun sat by his window. The city lights flickered outside, but inside him, everything was dark. He whispered, "Why me? Why no? Why after all this struggle? Dying like this?" And then the cruelest thought came. I've never done anything that matters. For the first time his resilience cracked. Tears fell freely, but then, something inside him spoke. Soft, firm, unshakable. I have 3 months. I will not die doing nothing. My body will betray me. I will build something that refuses to let me go. And with that vow, Arjun began the greatest, most impossible project of his life. Day 1. He started sketching on scraps of paper. Day 10. He scavenged through junkyards for wires, batteries, old medical devices. Day 30. His body grew weaker. The coughing grew worse. But his mind burned brighter than ever. Neighbors saw him working through the night, his hands trembling, his eyes bloodshot, his body frail. "What are you doing?" they asked. And Arjun whispered with a weak smile, "I'm building my tomorrow." He was inventing a machine. A device that could sustain his failing organs. A fusion of engineering, biology, and desperate hope. A machine not designed for profit. Not designed for fame. But for one single purpose: to cheat death. By the second month, Arjun could barely walk. His skin was pale. His bones jutted through his shirt. One evening, as he soldered a final wire, his hands gave way. He collapsed. The machine lay unfinished. And as he lay on the floor staring at the ceiling, he whispered, "Maybe I've lost." But then, the same old resilience stirred. That invisible friend that had followed him all his life. "No," he breathed. "I will not stop. Not now. Not yet." On the 88th day, the last week the doctor said he would live, Arjun finished his machine. With trembling hands he strapped it to his chest, wires running to his failing body. And then he pressed the switch. The machine hummed. Lights blinked. Air filled his lungs. Blood steadied in his veins. And for the first time in months, Arjun breathed without pain. It worked. Against all odds, the boy with 3 months to live had built a machine to extend his life. But here's the thing. The machine wasn't perfect. It wasn't stable. Doctors warned. It could stop at any moment. Scientists doubted. This is not sustainable. Corporations whispered. If this is real, it could change everything. And Arjun, he just smiled weakly and said, "Maybe I can't live forever. But maybe this machine will." The question now was, would Arjun's invention save only himself, or could it save millions more who faced death too soon? And as the machine hummed beside his failing body, the world watched, waiting to see if this dying boy had just redefined what it meant to live. When Arjun opened his eyes on the morning of the 89th day, something was different. He was still alive. Not because of luck. Not because of medicine. But because of the strange humming device attached to his frail body. The machine pulsed faintly, its rhythm syncing with his weak heartbeat. Each breath he took was not entirely his own, it was shared with the wires, tubes, and circuits that sustained him. He sat up, dizzy but breathing. "I should be gone by now," he whispered. "But I'm still here." And for the first time since his diagnosis, he smiled, not because he was saved, but because he had proven life wrong. But secrets, no matter how small, do not stay hidden in Mumbai. A neighbor who once mocked him had seen the glow of strange lights through his window. A nurse who had given up on him came by, shocked to find him alive. Soon whispers spread across the street. Arjun should be dead. But he's walking. He built something. By the second week, doctors arrived. By the third, scientists. By the fourth, journalists. And when the world finally saw the boy who refused to die, headlines screamed, "Dying boy creates life-saving machine. Invention defies death itself." Who owns the future? Arjun or the world? One by one they came to his small, broken house. A doctor said, "Arjun, give us the machine. With proper labs we can improve it. Think of the patients we can save." A businessman said, "Name your price. Billions if you want. The world will pay." A government official said, "Hand it over, son. This belongs to the nation." But Arjun only shook his head weakly. This machine was not built for wealth, for politics, or for power. It was built for life. And yet, deep down, he knew the world was not asking. The world was demanding. Nights became harder. The machine kept him alive, but it drained him too. Every flicker of its light reminded him. One failure, one mistake, and he would be gone, and so came the voice in his head. Should I have kept it hidden? Should I let them take it? Am I strong enough to protect what I made? One evening he woke to a sound. His door creaked. Two masked men had broken in. They weren't here to steal his money, he had none. They weren't here to harm him, at least not directly. They went for the machine. Arjun, too weak to fight, fell to the floor, clutching his invention to his chest. "Please, don't take it." But one man kicked him aside, yanking at the wires. And in that instant the machine sputtered, his breath faltered, his vision blurred. Then the thieves fled, spooked by neighbors rushing in. But the damage was done. The machine was cracking. And so was Arjun's faith in humanity. Lying in bed, gasping for air as he repaired his device, Arjun asked himself, "Do I even deserve to live longer? If the world only sees my invention as something to steal, maybe it's better if it dies with me." Tears streamed down his face. For a moment he wished he had never fought. For a moment he wished he had simply let death come quietly. But then the old Arjun, the boy who always failed, always trailed behind, but never gave up, whispered back, "No, I didn't come this far to give up. If resilience was my only gift, then resilience will carry me again." And so Arjun made a decision. He would share the machine. But not with businessmen. Not with politicians. Not with thieves. He would share it with the forgotten, the sick who had no hospitals, the dying who had no hope. If the world wanted his machine, they would have to see it where it belonged, not in labs, not in patents, not in boardrooms, but in the trembling hands of those society had abandoned. So he invited them, the poor, the weak, the sick. And in a dim, crowded room, Arjun strapped his prototype onto a frail old man whose lungs were collapsing. The machine hummed. The man's chest rose. The room gasped. Hope, raw, unfiltered, and unstoppable, spread like fire. Word traveled faster than money, faster than power. All across the city, people began saying Arjun is saving the dying. But hope attracts shadows. Within weeks, corporations filed lawsuits. Governments declared his invention a national security concern. And whispers of assassination circled in the dark. Because an invention that could cheat death was too dangerous to be left in the hands of a poor boy. And so, on one fateful night, as Arjun adjusted the machine keeping him alive, his door shook violently. Men in black uniforms stood outside. They were not there to knock. They were there to take. And as Arjun's machine hummed louder, syncing with his desperate heartbeat, he whispered to himself, "If this is the end, at least I'll fight it my way." The door cracked open. The machine pulsed. The world held its breath.